Hello, I'm Anupama Jain, the author of When Padmavani Paula and Masala Mix. I was asked once, why do women get measured by such stringent moral barometers? That got me thinking. Seriously, do women have it any easier than men? Men have seem to aging doesn't seem to stop them. If a woman is ambitious, or if she's seeking love, or if she's indulging in innocent flirting, she gets labeled immediately. What about a woman who steps up the corporate ladder just to raise a family? Does she get a second chance ever? So when Padmavani Paula tackles exactly these issues, the protagonist, Padma Lakshmi, is a simple girl born in Hyderabad. Now, as she goes to the big bad city, she discovers her latent ambition. She acquires a hip moniker Paula. Padma Lakshmi is Paula. She spruces up herself. She's a woman about town. And she rises the corporate ladder very fast. But as she touches 40, she is dethroned by a much younger woman playing the same game as Paula had done many, many times. Now, this is heartbreak time for Padma because Paula has now become Padma because she's now understood that there is more to life except it's just not looks, it's this inner self that is important too. Now, with her loving parents next to her, she clutches at the second chances that life has thrown at her and she aces life. In my case, when Padmavani Paula has been the case of life imitating art, it has been my second chance at life. I'm extremely fortunate and privileged to be speaking at PILF. Truly, these are unprecedented times. Global pandemic and its resultant situation. But hope floats, and I wish you all the very best. Stay safe, stay happy, and my best to you.
Very good evening to all. Welcome back to our next session, which is a book reading of Mr. Leonhard Thoma, which is brought to us German literature and philosophy at Munich University. After working in Lyon and Paris as an assistant teacher, he moved to Barcelona, teaching German language and literature at the university for many years. He has been writing short stories for teaching German language. He has also conducted lectures all over the world. Mr. Shani translated the story in Marathi and he read the Marathi version herself. Miss Puneet Kaur, she is moderating this session. I spent the now please take session forward.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
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 Yeah. Now, okay. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of Max Muller Bhavan, Kyoto Institute, Pune. I'm Asmita Dongre, and today we are honored to present our session at the 8th edition of PILF. I would like to introduce once more our author and welcome him heartily in this session. Mr. Leonhard Thoma is amongst us today, and he's going to read in German, The Perfect Couple. The idiomatisch, das Idealpaar. And reading will be followed in English and Marathi. My colleague Punit Kaur from Delhi will read the English version for us. The English translation is done by Gertrude Thoma, and Punit ma'am will read it for us. And Vaishali Dabke ma'am, my colleague in Pune, she will read us the Marathi version, and she has translated this one by herself. And we also have, last but not least, my colleague Aparna, and she'll be here to help me with the questions in chat as well. So I won't take much time, and we can start with our interesting reading session. We'll follow this sequence in all three languages, and then we'll proceed with the further program. And I'm sure most of you will be enjoy it. Even the German version, if you don't understand it, the English and Marathi version will give you the pleasure of this session. And I would ask Mr. Thoma to read the story for us now. The stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everybody. I'm very glad to be here, and I present you now my short story, The Perfect Couple, in the original version in German. Okay? Das Idealpaar. Also, Maike und Thorsten, die zwei, absolut ideal. Wie schön. Ihre Hobbys, ihre Interessen sind fast identisch. Beide reisen gern, beide sind Naturfreunde und beide gehen gerne aus. Ins Kino, ins Konzert, ins Restaurant. Thorsten liebt italienisches Essen, Pizza, Pasta. Maike auch. Maike mag Picasso, Thorsten auch. So viel gemeinsam, einfach perfekt. Natürlich gibt es auch Unterschiede, aber das macht nichts, das ist normal. Maike liebt Filme aus Hollywood. Thorsten findet Hollywood ein bisschen langweilig. Na und? Kein Problem. Diese Unterschiede sind gut. Man hat ein Thema für ein schönes Gespräch, für eine interessante Diskussion. Auch mit den Berufen ist das so. Thorsten ist Lehrer im Gymnasium und hat immer lustige Geschichten aus seiner Klasse. Maike ist Journalistin bei der Zeitung und trifft oft wichtige Personen aus Politik und Kultur. Manche Unterschiede sind sogar komplementär. Was heißt das? Naja, zum Beispiel kommt Thorsten früh nach Hause und kocht gerne. Maike kommt später nach Hause und spült gerne die Teller und Tassen. Aber Maike mag nicht bügeln, aber ihm, Thorsten, macht Bügeln richtig Spaß. Fantastisch, oder? Nur putzen. Putzen, das mögen beide nicht. Aber kein Problem. Zum Putzen kann ja jemand kommen. Auch ihre Stärken, ihre Qualitäten sind komplementär. Das ist wirklich super. Maike ist Informatikexpertin. Thorsten ist bei Computern immer noch ein Anfänger. Aber Thorsten kann Fahrräder reparieren und das kann Maike nicht. Also wirklich die zwei, wie Yin und Yang. Die beiden denken sogar synchron. Das ist fast wie Telepathie. Maike sitzt manchmal im Auto und denkt, sicher wartet er schon auf mich. Und Thorsten liegt genau in diesem Moment auf dem Sofa im Wohnzimmer und fragt sich, wann kommt sie endlich? Natürlich gibt es noch mehr Unterschiede, nicht immer komplementär, aber auch kein Problem. Beide haben ihre Freiheit und Freiheit ist wichtig. Am Montag spielt Thorsten immer mit Kollegen Volleyball. Da bleibt Maike zu Hause und macht Yoga. Am Mittwoch trifft Maike ihre Freundinnen Da bleibt Thorsten zu Hause und liest oder sieht fern. Am Wochenende fährt Maike manchmal zu ihrer Mutter und Thorsten besucht seine Eltern. Aber oft fahren beide in die Berge. Im Sommer wandern und im Winter Skifahren. Was für eine Harmonie, war absolut ideal. Und es gibt noch mehr Parallelen. Was? Noch mehr? Ja, also beide wohnen in München und beide sind Singles. Sie kennen sich nicht. Schade.
Toll, ja. Toll.
Now,
Ma'am?
English? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Leo. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing in English. The perfect couple. Well, Maike and Torsten, these two are just perfect. Unbelievable, but true. Their hobbies and interests are almost identical. Yeah? They both love traveling. They both love the great outdoors, and they enjoy going out to the cinema, to the concert, to restaurants. Torsten loves Italian food, pizza, pasta. Maike too. They're both interested in culture. Maike loves Picasso. Torsten too. So many things in common. Simply perfect. Of course, there are some differences, but they don't really matter. It's only to be expected, in fact. She loves Hollywood movies. Torsten, on the other hand, finds Hollywood a little boring. So what? After all, he can occasionally watch a Hollywood film. That's not really a problem, is it? These differences aren't a problem. On the contrary, they make a good subject for an interesting conversation on a pleasant evening out with friends. It's the same thing with their work. Torsten is a teacher at a high school and always has some funny anecdotes about school life to tell. Maike is a journalist and often meets interesting and important personalities from politics, sports, cultures, and brings her own stories home. Some differences are actually complementary, believe it or not. Torsten comes back from work early and just loves cooking. Maike comes back a little later and she actually likes doing the dishes, the plates, and the cups and everything. But she hates ironing, which she surprisingly enjoys. Amazing, isn't it? Only the cleaning. Well, neither of them likes to do that. But that's not really a problem. You can hire someone to do the cleaning for you. That's quite a simple solution. Their strengths, too, are compatible. And they really, really complement each other. Maike is an IT expert. And Torsten is an absolute beginner on computers. But he can assemble shelves, repair bicycles, which she, on the other hand, is not good at. Aren't these two just like yin and yang? Yeah, quite amazing. Even their thoughts are synchronized. It's almost telepathic. Sometimes in the car, she thinks, he's probably already waiting for me at home. At the same time, he's lying on his sofa in the living room and asking himself, when is she coming? Naturally, there are some differences, not always complementary, but they balance themselves out. After all, each of them needs his or her own space, and why not? For example, on Monday, Torsten plays volleyball, and Maike goes for yoga. On Wednesdays, Maike often meets her girlfriends. They love to gossip. And Torsten stays at home and reads or watches television. On weekends, Maike sometimes visits her mother, and Torsten visits his parents. What else? And both often go to the mountains on the weekend or on holidays. What do? Trekking in summer, skiing in winter. Isn't this a picture of perfect harmony? Absolutely perfect. And they have even more things in common. What? Even more? Yeah, they both live in Munich. Both are single. And they don't know each other. Isn't that a crying shame? What a pity.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
it is perfect.
Very nice.
Vaishali ma'am. Yeah.
आदर्श जोड. तर मायक आणि टॉर्स्टेन हे दोघं आहेत आदर्श जोडपं. किती छान ना. त्यांचे छंद, त्यांच्या आवडी अगदी सारख्या आहेत. दोघांनाही इटालियन खाणं खूप आवडतं. पिझ्झा, पास्ता. दोघांनाही प्रवास करायला आवडतो. दोघांनाही चित्र पाहायला खूप आवडतात का? आणि दोघंही निसर्ग मित्र आहेत. निसर्गात अत्यंत मनापासून रमतात दोघं. आणि त्या दोघांनाही त्यांच्या फावल्या वेळात ना बाहेर जायला आवडतं. उदाहरणार्थ चित्रपट पाहायला जायला आवडतं, संगीतांच्या कार्यक्रमाला जायला आवडतं. अगदी एकसारखं आहे दोघांचं सगळं. किती मस्त ना. पण अर्थात काही फरकही आहेत बरं का त्यांच्यामध्ये. ठीकच आहे ते पण नाही का. म्हणजे अगदीच नॉर्मल आहे सांगायचं तर. काही काही फरक तर असणारच. मायकलला हॉलिवूडचे चित्रपट खूप आवडतात. तर टॉर्स्टनला हॉलिवूडचे चित्रपट मात्र कंटाळवाणी वाटतात बरं का. ठीक आहे, चालतंय ते पण. हे असे फरक तर खरंच चांगलेच असतात. मग एक काहीतरी विषय असतो ना गप्पांसाठी किंवा मस्त रंगणाऱ्या रसभरीत चर्चांसाठी. त्यांच्या व्यवसायाबद्दल सुद्धा ना आपल्याला हेच म्हणता येईल. तो हायस्कूलमध्ये शिक्षक आहे आणि त्याच्याकडे कायम त्याच्या वर्गातल्या काही ना काहीतरी मजेशीर गोष्टी असतातच सांगायला. आणि ती आहे पत्रकार आणि बऱ्याचदा राजकारण, क्रीडा आणि सांस्कृतिक परिघातल्या अनेक महत्वाच्या व्यक्तींना भेटत असते. त्या दोघांमधले काही फरक ना मात्र पूरक आहेत एकमेकांना, अगदी पूरक. तो लवकर घरी येतो आणि आवडीनं स्वयंपाक करतो. ती येते उशिरा पण आवडीनं मनापासून भांडी घासून टाकते. मजा आहे की नाही, भांडी घासून टाकते मनापासून. पण मायकलला इस्त्री करायला अजिबात आवडत नाही आणि टॉर्स्टेनला इस्त्री करायला मजा आहे. ही पण गंमतच आहे नाही का. फक्त केर फरशी करणं मात्र दोघांना अजिबात आवडत नाही. पण तेही हरकत नाही म्हणा. ठीक आहे, ते करण्यासाठी कोणाला तरी सांगता येतं. एकदम सोपं. आणखी एक भारी गोष्ट म्हणजे त्यांची बलस्थानं सुद्धा पूरक आहेत एकदम. स्ट्रेंथ एकदम पूरक आहेत एकमेकांना. ती आहे संगणक तज्ज्ञ आणि त्याला संगणकाबद्दल फार फार तर गमभनच माहिती आहे. पण त्याला फर्निचर आणि सायकल दुरुस्ती उत्तम करता येते आणि तिला ते अजिबात येत नाही. आणि म्हणूनच अगदी खरं सांगायचं तर ते दोघं आहेत अगदी यिन यांग. अहो विचार सुद्धा ते एका वेळेला आणि एक सारखा करतात. अगदी टेलिपॅथी असावी इतका. कधी कधी ती गाडीत बसते आणि विचार करते, तो आता नक्की माझी वाट पाहत असणार, नक्की. आणि त्याच वेळेला बरं का अगदी त्याच क्षणाला तो बैठकीच्या खोलीतल्या सोफ्यावर पडून विचार करत असतो, कधी यायची ही घरी. पाहिलं. पण अर्थात फरक सुद्धा आहे त्यांच्यामध्ये आणि ते सगळेच काही पूरक नाहीये. पण त्यानं सुद्धा खरं सांगायचं नाही तर काहीही फारसे बिघडत नाही. दोघांनाही स्वातंत्र्य आणि अर्थात स्वातंत्र्य महत्वाचं हो का प्रत्येकासाठी. सोमवारी तो त्याच्या सहकाऱ्यांबरोबर व्हॉलीबॉल करतो. त्यावेळेला ती योगासनं करते. बुधवारी मायक तिच्या मैत्रिणींना भेटते. मैत्रिणी गॉसिप सगळंच माहिती. त्यावेळेला तो घरी थांबतो, काहीतरी वाचतो किंवा टीव्ही बघतो. शनिवार रविवार ती तिच्या आईकडे जाते आणि तो त्याच्या आई वडिलांना भेटून येतो. पण बऱ्याचदा ते दोघं मुक्त पर्वतांमध्ये फिरायला सुद्धा जातात. उन्हाळ्यात खटकंतीला जातात आणि हिवाळ्यात स्कीइंगला बर्फावरून घसरायला अत्यंत आवडतं. बघा हो, एवढा हा छान सुसंवाद, किती सुसंवाद हा दोघांमधला. कमाल आहे नाही? एकदम आदर्श. आणि अजून काही साम्य पण आहेत त्यांच्या. काय म्हणता? अजून साम्य? सांगता काय? हो ना, हे दोघे म्युनिक मध्ये राहतात आणि दोघेही अविवाहित आहेत. दोघे एकमेकांना ओळखत पण नाही. अरे देवा. थँक्यू.
Hello.
Yes,
Wow.
Aparna.
Yes. Wow, this was incredibly fun. Thank you so much, all the speakers, for such a wonderful reading session in 3 different languages. Also, Mr. Thoma, thank you so much for this beautiful and simple story where you have written it so amazingly, expressed all the characters in the story. We really love your books, and I think I have read many of them. And also, a big thank you to Puneet Kaur. The English version was really awesome. I am sure the public must have completely enjoyed it. And Vaishali Dapke, मराठीत सांगायचं तर खूप मज्जा आली. It was really fun. We really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for translating and reading it in Marathi. And I would also thank you, the PILF team and Manjari Prabhu, for giving us such a beautiful platform. And thank you once again, everyone, for such a wonderful session. Now, my colleague Asmita has few interesting questions for you, Mr. Thoma. So I request Asmita to take it forward.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Aparna. Thank you so much. As Aparna rightly said, we all love your books, and as librarians, we experience it many times. Your books are much in demand in our libraries, and they're just loved by the students as well as teachers. They are very helpful for German language learning students.
Thank you very much.
And this was really a great pleasure to see all three of you reading with your beautiful facial expressions, and the way you were delivering it was amazing. So coming to you, Mr. Thoma, you were working for many years as German language and literature teacher, and
Yeah.
then you started writing the books. So I would like to know more about this journey from a teacher, German language teacher, to an author. This might be a very interesting process. So could you please tell something about this phase in your life?
Of course, I think it's a really a funny journey actually, because I was always enjoying to write for myself without publishing. But then I started as a teacher in Barcelona, and I remember with my colleagues, we had to prepare exams, and my job was to find good texts, for the listening examination. And so I was searching, and at the end I said, so I cannot find anything, but I would like to write some stories myself, some texts for the examinations. And so my colleague said, yeah, go for it and just try. And I wrote some stories for these exams, and I had really fun. And my colleagues afterwards said, yeah, for the exams, they were perfect. They were not too difficult, not too easy. But the difference with other exams was that students had fun during the exams, which is not usual. And so I had this idea to write more texts, not only for exams, but also just just to learn German and just to enjoy the language. And so everything started. It was by coincidence, actually.
That's interesting to note. So my next question would be naturally, which profession do you find more interesting, as a teacher or as a freelance translator, or as you said earlier, they combine both so well that they play really very important role equally in your life. So
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it's, for me, it's I really like both jobs, of course, both professions, and I really love the combination, because for me, teaching and writing is a kind of yin and yang, as in the
yeah.
story. No, because teaching means to meet people, to be together with a group, to have a common project, to have a common goal. No, and writing means to be for my own at home, in isolation, in silence, but of course totally free. And I really like both, and it's how do you say, it's a privilege not to combine both. No.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. And that's the reason, I mean, you use a simple language structure, which is very good for understanding for German learners, and they can relate to it easily. I mean, most of the times you use these dialogues in your stories, so people can relate very easily to the text. And sometimes I have observed that there are few theatrical elements in your stories. Like, do you have any theater experience before? Because one can really visualize when one reads your stories, one can really visualize the characters. Or, for example, in your story, Tanner's Party, we can visualize and we can imagine that ambience with salsa music and that party atmosphere. So, do you have any theater experience in that case? Like,
I actually have not experience as an actor or something, but I love theater. I go very often to see theater. But the thing is, I think the dialogues are important, because they show the authentic language. No, they show people in action, and so I think dialogues are important to learn something of a language. And the reading thing is that, for example, the story of today, The Perfect Couple, I have read a lot of times, and so of course with every time I had the idea of this kind of movements, and so I'm really, this story I have read so many times, so this is a kind of automatism now. But it's not possible with every story. You know, there are some stories which have this theatralic thing, and so I can read them like that. And other stories I would read more quiet.
yeah. And another observation was that in most of your stories, there is a surprise element towards the end, or sometimes a sarcastic comment. Or sometimes the end is totally, completely open. I mean, people should think how it goes further. And so how do you think of the baseline of your story? Is it like the baseline is climax and then you write the entire story, or is it other way around?
Yeah, it's like that. I think the first thing of a story is always this surprise, this twist, this climax. It starts with this, which is normally at the end, but it's normally the first idea I have. And then I'm going to write the story towards this end. That's the order, which is maybe surprising. But this surprise is for me very important. For me, it's the heart of the story. And for me, it's also the most important element of a short story, because in a short story I have not the place to describe characters, to tell a long story, to explain. I have just this very short time, and I have like a cut at the beginning and a cut at the end. And this surprise means that the readers have to continue. They have to continue the story. They have to think about the story. The surprise means that you cannot, that the things are not always what they seem to be. So this is the moment to complete the story. And so I think it's a very important element of a short story. And I have a lot of fun with that, actually, because I like to surprise. And so that's a perfect chance to do that.
Yes. Thank you so much for explaining this. And I would like to know a little more about your workshops also. You provide workshops for German language teachers, and you bring that didactic element also in that, how they can use your stories in their classes. So I'm sure there must be some of the German teachers listening to us. So for them, this might be quite interesting. Few of them might have also attended your workshops.
Yeah.
So could you please tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think the idea of the workshops is very simple. I say, I just speak about that, how to use the stories in class, because normally teachers always says, oh God, we have no time to read. No, the class is just 1 hour and we cannot read all the time, because reading takes a lot of time. And my idea is my message is, yeah, but the story is very short. So maybe we saw with the perfect couple, it just takes 5 minutes to read it. But then you can do a lot of things with the story. It's not only reading or listening. It's always speaking and writing. Actually, you can do with a story is a situation, and this situation gives us a lot of possibilities, not to speak and to write, not to be creative in a way. And for example, in this story, I would say at the end, I always say to the students, look at that, it's a pity. Mike and Thorsten, they don't know each other. That's really sad. They should meet each other. So you have to imagine a situation where they meet the first time. And so it's a big motivation for the students, because they know now the two persons and they say, yeah, that's right. We have to bring them together. So what can we do? We imagine a situation where they meet and where they know each other and they will become a couple. So this is just also a kind of to continue with the story and to be creative. That's the idea of the workshops also, yeah.
That's interesting. And I like the way you portray people in your stories, like the characters in your stories. So my next question would be, the characters are always fictional, or sometimes are they real life characters whom you might have met in your social circle or amongst your family members also at times?
Yeah, I know that the readers always want to know that. And there's also a simple answer. I think most of the stories have some autobiographic elements. They have realistic elements, and I mix them also with fiction. So every story is a kind of mixture. Sometimes there's more fiction and less reality, and sometimes it's just autobiographic and very few fiction. And the characters very often are very similar to persons I know. That makes the thing easy for me, because then I can describe the person. I have also a lot of fun with that, no, because I think in this person and then I put it in the story, and so that's so it's always a mixture. And a detail is that I very often use names of friends and of family in the story. So that's also for me very funny that I say this person. Okay, I think of this friend, so I will put this name. And afterwards, I show that to my friends, and sometimes they are not very happy. You know, they say, "Yeah, but this person is not very sympathetic." And then I say, "Yeah, but it's not a portrait of you. It's just a character of the story, and it's just your name. So you should be happy to see your name." And I had no chance to describe exactly your person.
That's interesting. Yeah. Aparna, do we have in between any questions in chat, or should I proceed with my further questions?
No, yes, we have one. One of our colleagues from the audience, Renu Zamgaonkar, has a question for Mr. Thoma. The question is, what is the inspiration behind your character narratives? So could you please tell us something about it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit what I explained now, that sometimes it's based in real persons, and sometimes it's just fiction. But of course, it's a mixture. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's a mixture, actually. And sometimes sometimes it's real persons, sometimes these are characters from other books, from films, from movies, from articles, from newspaper. It's there are a lot of inspirations, different inspirations. And I wanted to add this, that people always think that a big event is a big inspiration, and I don't agree. For me, sometimes very daily life things, very simple things are sometimes for me a good inspiration. It's just a sentence I hear, a situation I see that can in the street, in a bus, in a station, can be more inspiration than a big party or a big event. No, it's not like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have one more question here from Kiran in the audience. Do you plan to
Aparna?
write a sequel? Hello?
Yeah, Aparna.
Yeah.
I
To
just
this
want
ideal
to.
car?
I want to request for 1 minute, because what he spoke
Yeah.
rightly, I had a very good question for that. So we'll take that first and take
Okay, go
the
ahead.
question from audience.
Yeah.
So right now you have mentioned that sometimes you observe someone in bus or in the park or somewhere on the street. So my I was just thinking, during this pandemic, we had lockdowns in all the countries, and that time we were all stuck at our respective places. There was no social contact at all. So has the pandemic like affect any way in on your writing, or like has it affected your writing as creation process? Like the social contact is completely not there, so you can't observe someone outside or listen to the chit chats and find some new inspirations for your next story. So how was it for you?
Yeah, I have to admit that for the moment it's not a too big influence, because the situation of writing is the same, because I'm always writing for my own in isolation. So it's the situation of writing has not changed. And this thing of observation, I still go out to the supermarket, and so there's still the possibilities are still there. And anyway, I think it's even a kind of chance, this situation, to write about, because it's a special situation. I haven't written about the Corona thing, but I think I will do. But it takes a little bit of time to collect the observations. But in this kind, it's no problem for me at the moment that I say, oh, I cannot go out. There's no inspiration. And I'm very often writing about things which happened 5 years ago or 3 years ago. So even if there's actually not so much stimulation, it's no problem. I have a kind of reservoir still.
Yeah, thank you, Aparna. Now we can take the question in chat.
Yeah. So do you plan to write a sequel to Das Idealpaar?
Yeah, I say hello to Kiran. Thank you very much for this question. It's a very funny question, I think, and I have a clear answer. Of course, I will not write a second part, because I want you to write the second part, and that's what I do in my readings. I always say to the students, please go on with that story. They have to meet, or something must happen, and I have so many beautiful sequels of this story, though I have not to write anything more in this case, because you gave me a lot of nice versions. So this work is already done.
Okay, so we have one more question. We hope. Okay, so one more question here from Tanishka. Are you inspired with any of the German writers itself while you create your own story?
This is an interesting question. I remember I was I'm still inspired by a Swiss writer, which is Max Frisch, which is one of my absolutely favorites. And I think I read everything from him, and he was also my subject at university. And he had this kind of, for example, he had these 2 books which are kind of diary, which are just very short short texts, just reflections, observations, then kind of fragments. And I remember this was a very good inspiration. Also, that you have not to write always a novel. Also, these short parts can be a kind of literature, and was for me a big inspiration. For example, and there are other ones, but this is maybe the best example.
Okay. So we have more questions from Shiveen. Do you intend to write non-fiction, maybe a biographical work, because you describe characters in your stories really well?
That's also an interesting question. Also for the moment, I have so much fun with this kind of fiction. So I think I will. I really like this to invent things, and it's a kind of freedom, not because I can do whatever I want. I can invent persons. And this non-fictional is interesting, not like a journalist to write articles about something. But I think that's not what I'm not. That's not my thing. I think so. I leave this to people who can do that better, and I will stay with my short stories. Maybe a novel would be interesting project for me. Maybe with more time. The good thing of the short stories is it doesn't take so much time to write a short story, but a novel would be a good goal for me. But always fiction.
Okay, and do you have any question, Aparna, in chat, or?
Yeah, one more. They would like to know your favorite writer as well, Mayura. To know the German culture.
Favorite writer? Yes,
Yeah.
as I said, there's this Swiss writer. Hello, you are always your favorite. Only should read. Okay. Okay, Max Frisch is a Swiss writer. His books are more from the 60s, 70s, 50s. So this is 60 years ago. I think if somebody from another country wants to know something about Germany or the countries with like Swiss, Austria, German, what I really like from the writers now is she's called Julie C. She's a writer about, I think, 45 years. She has novels and short stories, and I think she writes exactly about this generation too, about this generation of people 30 years, 40 years. And I think that's also a very good kind to approach German life today, or she's also very often in talk shows. She talks about political things, and she's a really intellectual. I think she's one of the most interesting writers which we have now in Germany. There are more, of course, but this is what I can say in the moment, for the moment.
Okay.
And yeah, one more. What genre would you like to read?
Which genre would you like to read? Okay, so I have to say that I said that I love to write short stories because they're also easy to write because they're short. But I have to admit at the same time that I love to read novels. Also novels of 300 pages, 500 pages, 600. I don't want to write this, but I love to read it, actually. Yeah. So my favorite genre are novels.
Okay.
Okay, and I have okay. You said before some time that students should write the next part of your story. So I was wondering what would be the common traps for aspiring writers if they want to take it as profession further, like they enjoy writing the sequel of your story, for example, and they develop the interest. Then what would be the common traps for such kind of aspiring writers?
Was ist Traps ist
Also Hindernisse oder so. Probleme, Hindernisse oder common mistakes they might make.
Mistakes.
Fehler, yeah.
It should just some advices for people who want to write. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. I think that people are always, when somebody says to me, I would like to write, but I'm afraid of this is a pity, I think, because you can just start to write, and people always think that in the first 5 pages they have to tell a very important thing, and it must be everything. No, a story can be a very simple thing, and they should start just to describe a situation, observation, and writing this. They explain much more than they think. You have not to explain everything in 2 pages. No, you have. I think it's also training, and you just write. Start to describe a situation, to write a dialogue, and don't be afraid that there's not all what you want to say in 5 pages. It takes more. And just to do it is important. Not to be afraid, and just to. You can show it just a friend or somebody. It's not. You cannot lose anything. Just try.
Okay, we have one
Answer to
more
your question, more or less. Okay.
Okay, one more question here from our library member Gaurav. Have you ever added your own character elements in any of your stories?
Have you added your own?
Yeah.
Have you ever added your own character from myself?
Yeah.
From myself. Yes, I think it's in. You cannot avoid it anyway. I think in a lot of stories you describe a person, and afterwards I find there are a lot of elements of myself. Sometimes I did not want to describe myself, but I think in every character maybe there's something of yourself. I think that's normal, and it's also a funny observation. But I think it's not.
And okay, you mostly write for language learners. So I was wondering, you try to be original always, or sometimes you're keen to provide or deliver the readers what they actually want?
Mama,
Like,
there's something.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, there was a technical problem. Now I listen. Sorry.
Okay, I'll just repeat the question.
Yeah.
Do you try more to be original, or sometimes it has happened that you have delivered something which the readers want?
Naya, I think writing, you always think at the same time in the readers, but it's not. I would not say that it's what they want. I don't think in what they really want to hear. You have your story, but of course, the kind of writing is, I think, in the readers because I know that they're not perfect in German, so I'm thinking in the style, but the story itself, I think it's just. I know I want to write it like that, and I cannot think in this kind. I don't think in the readers. It's the story is like that, and you can like it or you don't like it, but it must be like that.
Okay, and on YouTube, I have found few of your videos where you read out the stories. I think you have started this during the lockdown sometime. You are doing with the Uber publications. There's a project called From Küchentisch zu Küchentisch, where you read out your stories, and sometimes you hold the names of your characters in your hand, or sometimes you're sitting on the window side, or sometimes actually sipping a coffee at your table, on your table. So how this project developed? I mean,
yeah, this was an idea of the publisher, of Sophie Caesar. Maybe she's watching now too. And she called me in March when the Corona pandemic started, and she said to me, we have to do something. All the teachers are at home. They have to do homeschooling. They need material. They need stuff to do something for the students online, and we can do something. You could read your stories as a video, so teachers can use it in class. They can like homework. They can say to the students, just watch this at home. And I really liked the idea, because at this time I could not do anything. I could not go out. I could not travel. No, it was the start of the Corona thing. And so I really loved this idea. And I called a friend who has a camera, and he has a big garden and a nice house. It's not my house in the videos. It's of this friend. And so it was a really nice project, because once a week I went to the house of these friends, and then we thought, okay, we will do one thing in the garden, one thing in the first floor, one thing in the kitchen. And this was just in this lockdown time. It was really it was always half an hour of life, no, of working together with friends, and it was a really for us, it was like a therapy. It was really a good job at this time. And this was the situation.
That's nice to know. And I found this project really very interesting. Aparna, do we have any questions in chat?
Yeah, one last question by
Yeah.
Kimaya. Is there any new book of yours in process? Would love to read.
Thank you, Kimaya. Thank you. Yeah, I have always, there are some short stories finished or half finished, and in some weeks or months I will have another collection. But there's another project, because I have, in my first years, like 20 years ago, 15 years, I wrote a lot of stories for students, but they are on high level. They are level B2, B1. And my idea in the last weeks was to change the stories, to make them more easier, not to make them easier. And I changed now like 12 stories from level B1, level B2, and now they're level E1. They're like the perfect couple. They're very easy. And I would like to publish this book and the title will be Leo Light. It's like Coca-Cola Light, but this is Leo Light, because it's the difficult stories, but in easy versions. So
Interesting title.
This is a project which is already, I have the stories already, and now we have to, I have to talk to the publisher.
Yes, that's interesting. Yeah. And do we have any more questions, Aparna, in the chat? Because I guess...
No.
Okay. So it was really interesting talking to you. And my last question would be that you were in India. I mean, not in Pune, but in Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, and Delhi, probably. So how was it? And like, were you here for reading sessions or workshops, or how was it for you?
So this was a very, very rich experience. It was one of the richest of my life, I have to say. This is 6 years ago, and I was invited now by Pune to Delhi and Chennai, Mumbai, and Bangalore. And for me, it was just a big present to have the chance to see some cities and to meet a lot of people. Now, I think it was much, the experience was much richer than a tourist who was just seeing some monuments and some museums. And I had the chance to meet a lot of people, a lot of teacher colleagues. And this was just wonderful. And one of my, what I remember is this experience of colors in India. No, I remember a workshop, and there were 80 teachers in front of me, and it was just these colors and these smiles. And in Europe, these workshops are all black and white. This was a very nice experience, and there was all the days there were a big hospitality. This hospitality was really a very rich experience. This is 6 years ago. Yeah, it was in 14.
We hope to
So
see you
now,
sometime in Pune
Yeah.
also. And
Thank you.
thanks to this technology, now we are meeting virtually. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
from different
true.
corners of the world. You are from Germany, Punit ma'am from Delhi, and three of
yeah,
us from Pune, and we are in same frame.
yeah.
So that's one positive aspect of it, I would say.
Yeah,
And I would like to
absolutely. That's what I think. I have also
thank you.
thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for this project, and for me it's really an honor, and it's a big pleasure for me.
Yes, and I would like to ask Aparna to express our gratitude for this opportunity to have a conversation with you today. Aparna, over to you, please.
So
Yeah, before I begin with the vote of thanks, I would like to mention that people have shown a lot of love for the English and Marathi version as well, and would like to have more such events. And now, on behalf of Goethe Institute, Maxwell Bhavan, Pune, our director Miriam Bruns, and our entire team of organization and social media, Renu Zamgaonkar and Akshay Shirsagar, I would like to extend our vote of thanks and a very big thank you to all three of you and also our special audience. One can see in the chat room, it's full of warm and wonderful comments, completely, I mean, totally active. So we are very happy about it. And once again, thank you, all of you, for being a part of it and making this a successful event.
Thank you so much.
thank you too,
Thank you.
and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well,
Goodbye.
thank you for this very interesting reading and a chat session. We absolutely enjoyed it. An announcement for all the viewers, the next session will start at 6:45 p.m. So please don't forget to join us for a masterclass on sleep. Thank you.